Hello, and welcome to this presentation, which focuses on one of the questions posed in the public consultation. I will briefly present about where to set targets when considering integrated companies in the energy value chain, why this is important, and present different views on this issue. Integrated oil and gas companies can set targets for different scopes as well as targets for different parts of the value chain. This could lead to the setting of many targets, 9 or more, which seems unfeasible, although we observe in practice that companies do communicate sub-targets that are specific to parts of the value chain. For example, a methane reduction target specific to oil and gas extraction activities. The proposed well-to-wheel methodology addresses some of these issues by creating an indicator that considers carbon along the value chain, but leaves the issue of investment in the development of oil and gas resources and of oil and gas extraction largely unaddressed. This is a key aspect of the climate action and investment debate nowadays. The level to which we should be seeing fast decreasing investments in oil and gas exploration development in order to avoid lock-in effects and making sure revenues from oil exploration go to alternative forms of energy that are compatible with the energy transition. Can an integrated oil and gas or integrated energy company really be considered to have science-based targets if it continues to channel significant investments into oil and gas exploration and production? Some argue that this is a demand-led transition, and thus, what is important is to characterize the carbon intensity of the energy consumed and to make sure it is aligned with a well below or 1.5 compatible trajectory. This is what the well-to-wheel methodology does, ensure this alignment. Further, imposing constraints on investments in certain energy types will probably only lead to leakage, leaving other actors that probably care less and are less accountable on environmental issues to do the extraction. The other side of this argument is that fossil fuel extraction is the main point of entrance of carbon into the economy, and it is difficult to conceive a transition unless extraction and supply of fossil fuels actually decreases. Additionally, supply-side policies and containment of fossil fuel extraction is equally important for the demand-side transformation, as the two act in response to the other, namely through the price mechanism. Further, it is also argued that continuing investment in fossil fuel supply will be increasingly at risk of being stranded, creating locking effects and deviating important resources from clean energy investments. In the guidance, we allow any company to set an intensity target based on the well-to-wheel method. But there is also a requirement specifically for integrated companies and upstream companies, where we propose that companies should set absolute extraction targets and can do it using 3 methods. This is line B of the table. They can use the scope-free sectoral decarbonization approach, for which there is a small video explaining the method, using the least cost methodology, which could include an investment commitment as opposed to a greenhouse gas target for production, to only sanction projects with high likelihood of being competitive in 1.5 or well below 2-degree budgets. The least cost methodology uses Carbon Tracker's initiative stranded assets analysis work and is an innovative way of setting SPTs, and we also have a small video explaining how it works. There is also a requirement, line C, to set absolute methane reduction targets on production, so the upstream side, on an equity share basis. Many companies, but not all companies, do not support targets set on production, arguing that 1. The transition is fundamentally a demand-led transition. 2. For that reason, targets on the supply side can lead to leakage within the sector, with potential detrimental results, as less conscious companies would now be exploring the resources. 3. Setting limits on the supply side only limits company flexibility to make their own decisions at each moment on what is the preferable course of action to achieve their objectives. 4. Within the constraints of their company operations, decreasing supply will only lead to higher imports, which will lead to same or worse environmental outcomes, but with undesirable economic impacts. So, the questions we pose are: 1. Do you agree that integrated and upstream companies should set at least short-term production targets, and why? Second, do you agree that these can be set using any of the proposed methodologies? And third, do you have a preference between any of the methodologies being proposed? We also have similar recordings for the other consultation questions. Please check them out. Thank you for your attention and for your interest in this public consultation.